I was thrilled to perform as requested. It's been a while since I performed. They were foolish to say Elvis had no evil guys. Behind his soft charisma and rhinestone jumpsuits, the king of rock and roll was upset and was not ashamed to express it privately. Elvis maintained a pristine public image, but his closest friends knew he had a blacklist of people who stole his attention, betrayed his trust, or symbolized everything he detested about the music business. Rivals, celebrities, and friends turned adversaries were among them. After decades of speculation, we know which 7 performers Elvis Presley disliked and why. Watch out, this movie could transform your view of the king or these performers forever. His crown was stolen by the Beatles. Elvis didn't clap when 4 Liverpool mop-top boys landed in America. He clenched his teeth. The world felt the Beatles were cool, new, and unavoidable. Elvis Presley saw them as a threat, not just in record sales, but in reputation. They focused on an unexpected British invasion instead of the king of rock and roll. They hurt most with their might. Social outcasts, they were musicians. Their unruly hair, laid-back manner, and strong ideas were the reverse of Elvis's image. They were worse since they didn't bow to the king. His opponents ran. Elvis worked hard to elevate rock music. Lawmakers, church leaders, and conservatives called him offensive. 4 cheeky Brits joined his wave and changed the rules. Elvis invited the Fab Four to his Beverly Hills home in 1965. Big names should have attended a crucial event. It seemed forced and manufactured. Insiders said Elvis ignored them. Though anxious, he played bass as they talked. He reportedly mocked their haircuts, manners, and love of celebrity after they left. He escalated his criticism to the Oval Office. Elvis informed Nixon in 1970 that the Beatles were planning against the government. This meeting is famous. He claimed they generated problems, drug addiction, and nationalism. Elvis hated them and feared their values. He considered them extremists, rebels, and foes. Elvis disliked one Beatle. John Lennon wanted to watch him. Elvis was angrier with John Lennon than the others. Everything Lennon stood for was loud, irreverent, and against God, including his music. Elvis was famous for his Southern charm, religious themes, and military service. He found Lennon's defiance disrespectful and dangerous. John Lennon was bold. He opposed the Vietnam War, mocked organized religion, and said the Beatles were more renowned than Jesus. Southerners were stunned by this comment. Elvis believed that was sinful and disrespectful. His success came from connecting with loyal fans and patriotic Americans. With every soundbite, Lennon disturbed the balance. By the late 1960s, John Lennon was more than a musician. He was political too. He spoke at rallies and marched alongside radicals, using his popularity to provoke global turmoil. His bed-ins for peace with Yoko Ono made headlines. Elvis was angry as he watched from Graceland, where he was becoming more isolated. He didn't understand how a wealthy and powerful person could loudly criticize the system that benefited him. Elvis's bodyguards, Sonny and Red West, were among those who believed Lennon was poisoning young Americans' minds. Elvis brought Nixon a handwritten note to the White House in 1970. He asked to become a federal agent at large to fight drug culture and anti-Americanism. In that discussion, he called John Lennon a national security threat. Elvis wasn't acting. He believed Lennon was harming and destroying everything he had labored to safeguard. Some allege he tried to deport Lennon. What started as an art competition became political angst. Elvis hated Bob Dylan's nasal voice, so he was next. Dylan threatened Elvis's voice, not America. Bob Dylan was an artist, prophet, and pop culture icon. Elvis saw him as a singer who sucked his nose. Elvis loved Dylan's lyrics and made a haunting version of Tomorrow is a Long Time, but didn't know how to sing them. Dylan's gruff nasal voice and rambling approach didn't suit Elvis. Elvis believed that songs should soar and singers should sing with emotional ease and authenticity. According to him, Dylan sounded like a harpist babbling in the rain. Elvis mocked Dylan's voice behind closed doors, according to close pals. A longtime friend said he would roll his eyes, turn off the radio mid-song, and exclaim, "What the hell is he saying? This a joke?" Folk heroism and the poet with the guitar myth didn't interest him. Elvis thought everything was a deception. He was outraged about Dylan's values, not simply the sound. Dylan created a less showy, more cerebral, and more political renown. He didn't smile, dance, or dress for the film. Many still adored him. Elvis's straightforward, honest approach and focus on message over performance went against everything he had worked on for years. Elvis knew Dylan's hits changed everything. The business emphasized realism, protest, and social commentary. No more stage shine and beautiful love melodies. Instead, gloomy songs, talk singing, and a new cool without the king emerged. Dylan seemed to lead a movement, whereas Elvis was history. He could laugh off Dylan since he was simply another weirdo in a fast-changing company. Elvis didn't like all musical outcasts. Dylan wasn't alone. He also liked Jerry Lee Lewis, the gate craze, but more dangerously. Elvis never trusted Jerry Lee Lewis, despite their Southern roots and passion. They appeared to be made of the same material. Both were poor Southern kids with church music in their blood and lightning in their hands. They mingled holy and profane, built countries with hip-thrusting energy, and converted churches into concert halls. The origin was similar, but the leader was different. Elvis played well despite his arrogance. When in public, he cleaned up, obeyed Colonel Parker's instructions, and looked good. Jerry Lee Lewis didn't care. He broke every moral boundary like mad. He defended his 13-year-old cousin's marriage on national TV. He drank like water, fought, and burned his pianos to prove a point. Elvis had to fight for years to be taken seriously by reviewers and censors, while Jerry was radioactive and irresponsible. Despite years of tension, Southern charm and phony smiles on shared stages sometimes concealed it. Finally, the dam broke in 1976. That year, Jerry Lee drove intoxicated to Graceland with a gun on the dashboard at night. He broke the gates and shouted that he needed to see Elvis and talk to the king. The police immediately arrested him. Elvis appeared shaken. Fans observed the drama behind the myth for the first time when the tale expanded nationwide. Elvis said he's dangerous to himself and everyone else around him. What began as a commercial battle became stressful. Elvis no longer considered Jerry a friend, but a bomb-ready bomb. Fear had replaced pleasant rivalry. Elvis's next enemy didn't have to break through his gates. He had mocked rock and roll by paraphrasing Frank Sinatra, who mocked the king. Sinatra donned suits and disliked rock and roll, while Elvis sparkled. Frank Sinatra said hip-thrusting, guitar-slinging outlaws ended elegant music. He wasn't shy, and in the 1950s he called rock music the most harsh, ugly, desperate, and terrible form of expression. It was a call to fight, not condemnation. Elvis Presley, who was just starting out in music, felt like he was hit in the face. Elvis, the velvet-voiced king of conventional pop, whose admirers filled ballrooms and boardrooms, laughed at everything he made. The attack was about age and work. If you disagreed with Sinatra, you were either old or a loud youngster who disobeyed the rules. Elvis, a Christian boy who wanted to be a crossover star, was unpleasant. On the 1960 Frank Sinatra Timex show, the stars appeared together. They shook hands, grinned, and pretended to be in the movie. Elvis's family and friends thought it was a well-planned concert. Elvis felt freezing behind the scenes. His nickname for Sinatra was Old Vegas, meaning he didn't want to acknowledge that young people's revolt and raw feeling were the new American music. Sinatra embodied everything Elvis opposed: snobbery, rigidity, and the belief that rock and roll was a fad. He hated Sinatra's words. Because Elvis's early scars never healed, no matter how lucky, they shared a stage and fans, but not honor. However, their rivalry was generally friendly. Famous personalities from different eras met but never fought. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's next companion, was nasty and controlling, never letting go. He was inferior, not a competitor or artist. Elvis Presley's employer, Colonel Tom Parker, was more. He established his fame and prevented his freedom. The public believed Parker orchestrated the king's fast climb to power. His dark side controlled Elvis's life, money, and future. Despite his showmanship, Elvis rarely criticized Parker in public. They connected over appearance, bargains, contracts, and coerced loyalty. Elvis's close friends and family understood he was furious at Parker. The colonel planned everything, from hours of lousy movies to exhausting excursions and squandered opportunities. Elvis didn't have a passport, so Parker wouldn't allow him perform abroad. Parker grabbed a large 50% cut of Elvis's money, more than a typical boss. Despite his declining health, Parker pressed Elvis to perform like a show pony. He did this to repay gambling debts. Elvis became obese, drugged, and psychologically exhausted by the 1970s. His genuine love had imprisoned him in a golden cage. Elvis resented Parker for making his profession a jail, even though he never rebelled. There was one last name without a boss or Beatle: the people who tried to be Elvis, whom Elvis never spoke about but hated behind closed doors, owned it. Elvis impersonators in Las Vegas were odd and scary by the mid-1970s. They frequented clubs, parties, and tourist traps. Some were good, but most were bad. People in batsuits, plastic wigs, and over-the-top sneers played suspicious minds in hotel bars, mocking a living man Elvis didn't like. Most people saw them as humorous tributes to culture legends. Elvis saw them as slow-motion efforts to assassinate him for who he was. He once told a close friend, "They're burying me before I'm dead." It left horrible memories and faded. These factors made his life's job funny. His attitude, emotion, and pain in every song were being converted into a costume or comedy. While walking by casino billboards, he saw cartoonish, inflated images of himself that made no sense. He reportedly skipped hotels to dodge the prank. He became increasingly skeptical whenever you saw him alone, wondering how he could be alive and forgotten. Worse, the fakes persisted. Elvis's health and confidence declined, therefore more copies were printed. Each bogus Elvis show made the genuine one seem less noticeable. He saw them as spirits telling him he would soon be out of style. His former worshippers were copying him. Worse, Elvis couldn't stop it for the first time. People called him rock and roll king. Everyone has enemies, even monarchs. Elvis Presley dealt with stardom, betrayal, and a world that didn't always love him behind the scenes. His dislike sounds weren't usually loud. Sometimes it was peaceful, and he saw himself in them. The king heard and remembered it. Remember this the next time you hear a Beatles song, Dylan lyric, or terrible Elvis impression in a Vegas bar.